Hello, it's Dr. Rhonda Johnson. Today's Monday, July 26, 2021. And today I'm going to be talking about breathing. It's something we take for granted until we can't breathe. And do we have a right to breathe non-COVID virus infected air in shared public spaces? So let me start off by putting this in context. I saw a news story with people protesting mandatory COVID vaccination, and I was looking at some of the signs, and some of the signs said, "My body, my right." So, of course, it started me thinking about what rights do people who don't want to get COVID infection have? And it made me think about just breathing. So I want to again ask this question: do people have a right to breathe virus-free air in a public enclosed space? But let me first review this basic critical life function called breathing. Again, I don't think most people think about it until they can't breathe. Well, breathing involves two phases. We breathe in and we breathe out. Now, when we inhale, that's breathing in, air comes into our lungs, and oxygen from the air moves from our lungs to our blood. And at the same time, when we breathe out, carbon dioxide, which is a waste product, moves from our blood to the lungs, and it's exhaled. We breathe it out. This process is called gas exchange. And folks, it's essential to our daily living. Now, the lungs are the main organ for gas exchange, but the breathing involves other parts of our body too. That's called the respiratory system. The trachea, which is the windpipe, muscles of the chest wall and diaphragm, our blood vessels, our tissues that make breathing and gas exchange possible. At a cellular level, it's very complicated. Now, most people may not realize this, but our brain controls our breathing rate also, how fast or slow we breathe, by sensing our body's need for oxygen and its need to get rid of carbon dioxide. So that's a review of breathing. I bet you didn't think I was going to do that today, right? Now, to bring this home to COVID. COVID, of course, causes problems breathing. You know, the virus has receptors. It has a spike protein which attaches to the receptors which are on the lung cells. And COVID can cause pneumonia. And when most people get critically ill from COVID, it's because they're suffocating. What is suffocation? Suffocation is you lose the ability to breathe. Now, COVID pneumonia is caused by the virus, and we all know now the virus reproduces itself in the lung cells and causes them to fill up with fluid or pus. Now, symptoms can range from mild to serious, and they can include a cough, fever, chills, shortness of breath, and trouble breathing. Now, I've known several people, in fact, too many people, who have recovered from COVID, fortunately, and who have recovered from COVID pneumonia. And the things that I remember them telling me was that it felt like having an 18-wheeler truck sitting on my chest. Another person said, I felt like my lungs were on fire. Others have said their lungs felt heavy, like someone was sitting on their chest. And another person said, I couldn't get my breath. I was panting and panting and panting, but I couldn't get any air. So those are some of the symptoms of COVID pneumonia and how it makes people feel. Now, unlike the common bacterial pneumonias, which many people have had, and I have had, and bacterial pneumonia is no joke either, but at least there are antibiotic treatments for most forms of bacterial pneumonia. You take them, and in 24 to 48 hours, you're feeling much better. And right now, they're researching what treatments will work, but everything, of course, is in clinical trials and is experimental. Now, how serious your COVID pneumonia becomes depends on your age, your overall health, whether you're a smoker, whether you have pre-existing conditions. And now, if you're vaccinated, you might have some level of immunity to the virus. So again, back to this case. Now, I've talked about breathing. Let's talk about the right to breathe safely. Now, we're facing still a national public health emergency, a global pandemic, and we know that this Delta variant is highly contagious. Experts have said it is 225% more contagious than the original virus. Other experts have said that 7 million people across the world are getting infected daily. Now, when you think about this, we all share the same airspace. At home, at work, on the bus, on the subway, on the train, on the plane, in school, in the hospital, in the car. We share and breathe the same air, folks. Indoors or outdoors, we share an airspace with everybody else. And when you think about COVID, most people now never know who gives them COVID. There's just too many people to do contact tracing now. So if we're going to help protect the right to breathe the same air that is not contaminated by the Delta variant or any of these COVID variants, is this a basic right? It certainly is something we take for granted. And if we want to keep the air clean, we have to take steps to reduce the risk of infection because we all share the same air. And it gets increasingly difficult to avoid infection in public places by this unseen, invisible virus. Now, we know that an infected person may be asymptomatic for a couple days, but infectious, and they can release millions of active, contagious Delta variant particles by routine coughing, sneezing, routine coughing, singing, shouting, laughing. So if there are less infected people, I'm just going to call this the COVID viral polluted factor will be a lot less. Our air will be safer, and I think we can all breathe a little bit easier. So we have to protect each other. We have to protect our airspace. We have to protect our right to breathe clean air, which is a matter of life and death. That's my message today. I know I'm not a lawyer. I'm not an environmentalist. I'm not even an infectious disease expert. But one thing I can say I do is the same thing that all living people do as we breathe. We breathe the same air space. So, as always, my views are my own. Stay safe, folks. Protect your airspace. Do ventilation. Put those masks on and get a COVID vaccine.